So one of the most challenging parts of any presentation is that very, very, very first part. If you're wondering how to introduce yourself before you actually start the presentation, then you're in good company because for most of us, once we actually get the first few sentences out when we're speaking, our nervousness actually diminishes pretty significantly. So that the initial kind of self-introduction that you give is really important because it will help. If you struggle here, your nervousness will often increase. And in addition, the old adage is that you never get a second chance to make a first impression. That is very, very true, especially if the people in the audience don't really know you. So basically in this session, we're going to cover the best way, a very, very simple 3-step process that you can use to introduce yourself in a presentation. And I'll give you the summary of the 3-step process first. The first thing you want to do is start with your name, obviously, and probably your company, especially if it's a professional speech that you're giving. If you're giving a presentation to a class or school, or if you're in a competition of some type, then you would reference the organization that you're representing or the school that you came from. The second thing, though, is you want to tell your audience what problem that you can solve for them. So there's going to be content that you're delivering in your presentation that will solve a problem for the people in the audience. Focus on that in the introduction. We'll show you exactly how to do that as we go through the process. And then finally, you want to give them some type of proof. You don't want to just tell them that you can help them solve a problem. You want to give them some type of proof. So again, we'll go through each one of these things. They're actually really, really simple once you think about it. But let me give you first give you some background on some things that you want to be aware of before you actually start to prepare your introduction. The first thing that you want to do is, before you start doing anything, you want to identify what your audience wants from the presentation. Before we actually get into the how to do the introduction, let's talk about the purpose of the speech. The main purpose of the introduction is to build rapport with your audience and to let them know some of your credentials. So in addition to that, by the way, you also want the audience to pay attention to you, obviously. So this can sometimes be very, very difficult because, let's face it, most people who are sitting in any given meeting just really don't want to be there. So if the speaker just stands up and brags about how great he or she is, and he's probably going to turn off the audience. So before you actually design your introduction, think about what your audience wants from your presentation. Why are they there? Why do they care about listening to you? Why do they want to spend their valuable time listening to whatever it is that you're going to be telling them? Are you going to be wasting their time? Those are questions that they all have. And they want to know, are you going to provide them with something valuable? So for instance, I've got an expertise in a number of different areas. For instance, I'm a public speaking coach. I'm a keynote speaker. I'm a best-selling author. I'm pretty good at search engine optimization as well for websites, which is kind of unique. I'm a popular podcaster. I get thousands and thousands of people every week listening to my podcast. However, if I delivered that introduction to a given audience, they're most likely going to look at me and go, so what? What does that have to do with me, right? That doesn't answer the questions that we talked about before. Hey, is this going to be valuable for me? And is this going to be worth my time? So the statement is really kind of Doug focused or me focused or speaker focused. It's not really audience focused. So as you're kind of thinking about why your audience would want to pay attention to you, kind of jot down some notes about the answers to those questions. What's in it for them? Why do they care? What's the value of this topic to them? Just kind of write it down and set them aside for a second. These things are going to be really important as we get further into the process. But you really want to focus on those things before you start to design your talk of introduction. Otherwise, it's going to be about you and not them.